After 1 week of racing, the 2006 Giro d'Italia has delivered some great moments. Paolo Savidelli conquered the opening time trial to be the first to wear the leader's pink jersey. And Team CSC showcased their strength, taking top honours in the team time trial by a second. And in the absence of Italy's fast man Alessandro Petacchi, Australian Robbie McEwen has been unbeatable on the flats, collecting 3 stage wins. But yesterday, the focus switched as the first sign of an incline shook up the peloton. It was just a taste of the climbing the Giro now holds in store. For now, the Ukrainian Sergei Gonchar is the man in pink. Today, the first mountain top finish will also be the first true test in the battle for the overall pink jersey. The stage is there for the taking for all of the race favourites. Who will emerge today and stamp their authority on this year's race? Cyclism Sundays brings you Stage 8 of the Giro d'Italia next on OLN. Yes, it's the second Sunday of the Giro d'Italia. It is now on home soil after 4 days of racing in Belgium. And right at the top of the pile, there is indeed a rider from Ukraine up front. Hi everybody, I'm Phil Liggett, joined of course by Bob Roll and by Paul Sherwen. Well, now the riders have already done 1,100 kilometres in this year's Giro, most of it on Belgian roads. 11 riders certainly won't be seeing Milan. They've dropped out on the way. And of course the big name missing at the moment is Alessandro Petacchi, the big sprinter. And that's left the sprints rather one-sided at the moment. Well, let's have a look back. After Paolo Savidelli won stage 1, McEwen won stage 2. Let's pick up on what happened on stage 3.
Well, stage 3 of the Giro d'Italia, the riders still in the bad weather of Belgium, from Perros to Namur, 126 miles of racing, but at the end of the stage, a very difficult finish for the riders. It was also drama as well for Alessandro Petacchi. He crashed out of the stage, but did manage to finish, which is really an impressive performance, because at the end of the day, it was shown that Alessandro Petacchi had fractured his kneecap. He is now out of the Giro and maybe out of the Tour de France. And I tell you what, though, when it came into town, there was a big acceleration coming up to the summit of the climb of the Citadel just outside Namur. It looked very much as if it was going to go to Schumacher, and Schumacher left it all the way up to the line ahead of Chechu Rubiera, got himself the win, and of course with that victory, he also got himself the overall classification.
And not a bad thing in your very first major tour as well. Stefan Schumacher living up to the fine reputation he's built, the leader after stage 3. The race went on, of course, and stage 4 was the last day in Belgium, Bob, as we left Wanza and headed to Hotten. A flat day, but at least the sun was out.
At least the sun finally came out in the Giro d'Italia after some wet stages. 113-mile stage to Wanza. The breakaway caught under the impetus of the Gerald Steiner as well as the T-Mobile squad. Big dash to the line. Olaf Polak hoping to win the stage, but right up the middle is Robbie McEwen, the Australian. Unstoppable so far in the Giro d'Italia. In the sprints, great ride by McEwen.
Yes, that was win number 2 for Robbie McEwen. Henk Vogel's there, his Australian teammate, also celebrating after a great lead out. The Milram boys did try to win that, even without Petacchi, but they weren't successful, Paul. On to stage number 5 after the rest day and the transfer into Italy. This was the team time trial, and so often this has been the domination of Team Discovery. It wasn't to be today.
Wasn't to be today, despite the fact that out on course, Team CSC were looking very well drilled. Discovery Channel had a very important visitor for the day, a man by the name of Lance Armstrong. He wanted to see his guys win. They have been very dominant at this speciality over the last couple of years, but that was not to be. The big excitement came by the performance, really, of Team Telecom, who looked to be setting the best time all the way along. But losing a man with 300 metres to go, and that was the 5th counting man, gave the victory to Team CSC, and that makes them start the Tour of Italy with a very solid performance.
That was a good result, Bob, for Ivan Basso, of course, part of the CSC squad, but for the time being at least, it was a new leader, and Sergei Gonchar, once led this race back in the 90s, was in the pink once more. Moving on then to stage number 6, heading from Bussetto to Forlì, 223 kilometres rather, bringing the riders through the 800 kilometres done so far. And the breakaway, as always, Bob, was swept up, and a big sprint. Guess who won?
Big sprint to the line after the breakaway. Crash in the finale. but even that could not slow down the fast man from Australia. Riders all over that finishing straightaway, but right up through the middle in the purple jersey as a sprint leader is Robbie McEwen, once again the fast man from Australia, getting his third win of the Giro so far this season.
And there's Robbie McEwen in the Ciclamino leader on points there, also increased his lead with maximum points for his third stage win. What an opening week for McEwen. Olaf Polak, though, was the leader of the Tour. The last time he wore pink was a couple of years ago for a day as well. And that was about all it was to last this time around, Paul, because then we were in Italy now, deep in the heart of the hills, 143 miles, heading to Saltara. And this was yesterday, and the long breakaway, well, for once, one man did survive.
But only one man survived from that breakaway, a man who's had great success in the past, and you can see Rick Verbrugge winning himself a stage of the Giro d'Italia here, but only by a fraction of a second. It's the third time he's won in Italy, but it was by 15 seconds, and there was a change in the overall classification because Sergei Gonchar got himself to the front well in advance of his teammate who led in the morning, Olaf Polak.
And that then leads us to this situation this morning. Savidelli 6 seconds, Basso third, Michael Rogers the world time trial champion fourth. Looking down here, Tommy Danielson fifth, Danilo De Luca racing on home soil today, lives in the region, he's in ninth, and Jens Voigt in top 10. Let's have a look at the notables. Punigo, a winner of course in the past, he's lying 11th. Simona twice a winner, 20th. Ulrich is there in 22nd place, and down at the bottom Aaron Olsen riding his very first tour in the 165. Watch out for Ruano, but they say in fact he's not too well at the moment. We'll find out today for sure, because we can now look at stage number 8. Let's look at the men we expect to see in the thick of the action. I expect to see, of course, Paolo Savidelli. He made a great start in defence of his championship. He hasn't slipped far away from the lead, has he? Sitting up there in second place overall. And today, well, bigger men better than me are saying this guy is cruising.
A lot of people say Paolo Savidelli is cruising, looking very good out on the course, but the man I'm going to pick for today is Damiano Cunego. He's had 6 wins so far this year, had a very difficult season last year with mononucleosis, won the Giro d'Italia the year before that, but for the kind of finish we're looking at today, he is the kind of man who's got the explosive nature to get himself across the line, as far as I'm concerned, in first place.
I'm sorry, fellas, but both of you guys are wrong. It's going to be my man, Ivan Basso from Team CSC. What a great season they've had so far with big wins throughout the year. Basso wants to do well in the Giro. He's done well in the past. Second in the Tour, and came with an incredible Criterium International win earlier in the season. He is your man for today.
Well, we're going to see, Bob. Today is a great day in the race, of course. It's our first mountain top finish, Paul, and it is a 12-kilometre climb. We're inland, and we are on De Luca's home soil.
On De Luca's home soil, look at that. The riders start very nicely with the Adriatic coast on their left-hand sides, all the way down to the small town of Pescara before finally turning inland to Maielletta and the climb of Passo Lanciano. Look at this. It's all down about the end of the race today. Once they turn inland, it starts to ripple a fraction, but it's that little climb at the end. There's 1,000 metres in altitude the riders will have to gain. It's going to be very difficult. And the stage is all about this, 171 kilometres or 106 miles, and that's roughly the distance between Denver and Silverthorne. The mountaintop finish today, 1,306 metres, 4,285 feet. The steepest part of the climb is 13%.
Well, thanks, Paul. Well, just before we go to our live coverage, just take a look at this, because this crash has just happened. A lot of big names down here. In the grass is Ruggiano, last year's King of the Mountains. Jason McCartney is also down in trouble. A couple of French riders there, including Le Boulanger. And the man who was the erstwhile leader, Stefan Schumacher, also involved in this massive pile-up as we race towards the finish. Well, there's the situation at the moment. The peloton is regrouping after that crash. As you can see, 1 or 2 coming in behind the cars, I think, and the referee obliged to turn a blind eye. 36 kilometres left to race to the finish, but all of the action today, Paul, looking a little bit certain now to be at the end, but they've still got this breakaway, and the last time check we got was a shade over 2 minutes.
Yeah, they had a maximum advantage of close to 4 minutes at one stage, but we've seen a lot of work at the front being done by Saunier Duval of Gilberto Simoni and, of course, of Liquigas, the team of Danilo De Luca. Both of those riders saying that they are going to be the winners of the stage here this afternoon, as we here get a chance to see what the leading group of riders look like. This group is 14 riders strong, although just a few moments ago there was a big acceleration at the front.
Big acceleration to split the breakaway. A lot of riders in it. 35 kilometers to go. They've just gone under that banner. But of course, the big news for today is the climb to the finish, and all of the GC contenders have to come out and play. Simoni has his riders on the front. Savadelli's been riding very well, and Danilo De Luca is from this region. So a lot at stake here on today's stage.
Well, the best man we caught a glimpse of in that breakaway there, and a little blimp in the picture there. Well, the best man in that breakaway there, we caught a glimpse of him, Marzio Brusagini. He rides for Lampre. He's 42nd overall at 3 minutes 46 off the pace. He was almost up to the pink jersey level, but I think they'll chase it down now. A lot of work is being done by the Leaky Gas team, and that's the team of Danilo De Luca. But I have to say, Paul, watching the pictures yesterday, Danilo didn't look terribly good.
Well, he didn't look great, neither too did Gilberto Simoni, but it's all about getting yourself psyched up for a stage like today, and I think those guys are going to be ready.
Well, the field concentrating now on the big chase. It should happen soon. The gap is counting, but the gap officially just over 2 minutes. Well, it's early on here in Stage 8. We'll take a break and come back with more. Welcome back to the Giro d'Italia. Well, the race has been going for 8 days now. Still no sign of who is likely to win this event in a couple of weeks' time. But one man on everybody's lips is the Italian Ivan Basso. He's certainly going to go into the Tour de France as a pre-race favourite there. Well, earlier we caught up with him, and this is what he had to say.
I don't expect to win both. I expect to do my best in both races. And especially now I'm in the start of the Giro, I'm in a good condition. I want to try do the best Giro is possible, and I believe is the best way for arriving in a good form in the Tour de France to make a good Giro d'Italia, and is keep condition, keep motivation, and keep focus in yourself for arriving the Giro d'Italia in the Tour de France in a nice condition.
Well, I must say, Bob, I'm a little bit surprised that Ivan's saying he's not really expecting to do the double.
Well, Ivan Basso has said that he'd love to win the Giro, as all Italians dream about pulling on the pink jersey in Milan. He started out the season fantastically with the win in the Criterium Internationale after barely training, but the double maybe even is impossible for Ivan Basso.
Well, you know, the thing is, it's very important, I think, to try and decide what your high spot of the season is going to be. And Ivan Basso has said he wants to win the Giro d'Italia. I think what he's trying to do here, Phil, is move away from the pressure of having a Tour de France favourite ticket on his back, although Lance Armstrong this week has already said that he believes Basso is the man to win the Tour.
Looking down on the long line of riders here now, they're in determined mood now. They never really, Bob, let this breakaway get away today. I mean, we had that original group 11, 3 riders caught them after an awful long chase, but they've never been out of sight and out of reach, have they?
No, they haven't. First 100 kilometers in just about 2 hours, so 50 kilometers an hour for the first 2 hours of racing. That is very fast, especially after a whole week on the bike. That makes for some sore legs. But the GC men won't be too bothered with that. They'll be looking forward to getting to that last climb. The breakaway is just up the road now, just a couple of minutes ahead, and it's falling apart. Under these attacks, Serge Baguet was at the front. Now the Civitanova Marche rider has gone. Trying to get a little bit of a lead. I think they're going to need a lot more time than the gap that they have, which is just over 2 minutes.
Well, that's an attack from the front by Jan Kijks there, the only Civitanova Marche rider in that breakaway. He sensed the catch and he's trying to scurry up to the climb. Remember, it's nearly 13 kilometres that climb, and it is quite hard. There's the attack round the champion of Belgium from Quickstep, who's having a great year, Paul. He's spending a lot of time in front of our cameras this year.
Baguet's having a great season, made the move across this winter transfer season from, of course, Civitanova Marche, for who he won the title, to the Quickstep squad. But I think a lot of these riders will get a serious shock when they get to this final climb of the day. It's actually 12.3 kilometres in length. It goes up 1,003 metres, which is 3,300 feet of climbing. And although it's only an average gradient of 8.4%, that 13% maximum at 1 or 2 stages is going to make it very difficult. And I think it will be very difficult for this leading group of 14 to survive, because the big guys really want to play this afternoon.
Well, De Vitam and Lotto had a slow start to the year. It took them a while to win a race in Europe, and then they came at a flood in the Tour of Romandy, finishing off with the overall winner in Cadel Evans. And here, of course, McEwen is sprinting so well. He won't win today, Bob, but they seem to be, the morale sky high.
Well, Robbie McEwen has been racing so well in the Giro d'Italia, taking advantage a little bit of the crash to Alessandro Petacchi, the fastest man from the Milram squad. But Pataki didn't look spectacular on the first stage when he finished in 4th place, and Robbie McEwen's showing clean wheels to the peloton there and has carried on with all the sprint finishes going his way so far in the Giro.
Yes, the field you see at the back end there, it's still regrouping from that crash. It happened about 8 or 9 kilometres ago now. There must have been a touch of wheels, and let's hope that there's no repercussions from that, because it'll be overnight when we'll learn about all the cuts and bruises and likely fractures and riders who don't come out to the start, like happened to Alessandro Pataki last week. That was a big blow to the Italians, I think. He never even got out of Belgium to show his sprinting prowess. And I think it's done Mario Cipollini a favour, because really, if Pataki, taking into account the age he is ever going to equal Mario Cipollini's stage win record of 42, I think he needed to win probably 4 stages this year, and it won't happen now, of course.
It won't happen this year, and it makes it very much more clear how fast Mario Cipollini was and how incredibly talented that great man was. The man from Lucca, the Lion King, winning 42 stages in the Giro. We may never see that broken.
I don't think we will now, Paul.
I don't
Not
think
at
we
our
will.
age.
Not at our age, definitely not at our age. But I think what is interesting was Cipollini comparing himself to Robbie McEwen, saying that even so, Mario Cipollini still reckoned he was the fastest man in the world. His sprints, 75 kilometres an hour, almost 50 miles an hour, whereas Robbie McEwen's are about 2 miles an hour slower. But Robbie zigzags his way through the bunch and uses the advantage of all of the other teams.
Yes, and that's the big thing about little old Robbie McEwen. He's a crafty rider, and he comes out of nowhere to win. This is the breakaway. 11 of them came together. One has, for the moment at least, gone off the front. And there's Santa Anza. He's in the breakaway here for Sella Italia. Looking down on the field here, little chat from Sony Duval. Not too sure why our director's giving this, unless this is possibly the cause of the fall. A little bit of chat going on down there. Don't think so. It's Gilberto Simone's team. Simone not having a great start to the Giro, remember. Little bit of time to make up for him. Determined look then on the face of Iker Flores. He's in the breakaway, and we'll take a break. Well, welcome back. Stage 8 today of the Giro d'Italia, and our first taste of the big mountaintop finishes. But what about next Sunday, stage 14, where the riders really are in the big climbs, Paul?
Well, it's a big day for all of the climbers. It starts off climbing with a great climb of the Grande San Bernard, which takes the riders down into Switzerland for a short period. They climb back into Italy at the end with a famous climb, the Simplon Pass, the Passo del Simpione. And I tell you what, it's going to be a big day between the two riders, Paolo Salvadelli and, of course, Ivan Basso. Could be the showdown.
All right, well, we'll see about that. That, of course, is a week away. Remember, OLN is at the Giro d'Italia. It's week 3 of the race, and the stakes are high. 2 major climbs, Tour de France favourite Ivan Basso and last year's winner Paolo Salvadelli. They'll be tested. Cyclism Sundays on OLN next Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern, and that's 2 p.m. Pacific. Looking down on the pack here now, a little bit of rain you can see on the camera lens from the helicopter. It's just in the air at the moment. No reports coming back to us what we're likely to see when we get up to the top of the mountain here at the Passo Lanciano, but we're going to find out anyway at 31 kilometres to go. Now, the average speed today at the Giro d'Italia is quick. 50 kilometres covered in the first hour. After 3 hours of racing, the average is still up there at 46 kilometres an hour. They'll get slower.
It's been a very fast day of racing. In fact, even the second hour of racing was 49.5 kilometres an hour. That's almost 62 miles of racing covered after 2 hours of the day. It really is, I think, a lot to do with the fact the riders have been along the coast. There's been a prevailing tailwind until they turned inland around Pescara, and then the race has slightly changed because it's undulating now towards the start of the climb, and that will slow down the average speed a fraction. But if you look here at the images we're getting, the race is really on to pull back that leading breakaway back before the start of the climb.
Into the town of Rusciano. That's for the leaders at least. This will be 30 kilometres to go, I think, for the breakaway now as they get under the banner. Sitting at the back there, number 11, Sylvain Calzati, now rides for AG2R. He's a rider that hasn't won too much in his life, but has always promised a lot. His best result coming in the Tour de l'Avenir. This breakaway, though, Paul, it looks as though it's working pretty well. It hasn't exactly given up, has it?
Well, the big advantage is it's a 14-man breakaway, so there's a lot of guys in here who are still energetic, still keen to go to the front, still keen to keep the pace nice and high. The average, media corsa, the average speed there, just inside of 46 kilometres an hour. But that is going to hurt when it comes down to the final climb of the day, because after riding along in a very big gear like this, Bob, in these weather conditions, all of a sudden you change from the biggest gear that you've got to the smallest. it hurts the body.
Absolutely tears the legs up. You're already full of lactic acid from a week of racing, a long transfer from Belgium to Italy, and some rain. Plus, it's the first big climb of the Giro d'Italia so far this year, and it's going to hurt a lot of guys. The peloton really chasing fast now. Big, long, thin line. And whoever emerges from today is going to be a special bike racer. Danilo De Luca has put his men on the front, and he's promising to do something very big. Suffering a lot yesterday on the first tough stage, and I don't know if his form is up to what it was last year when he had the jersey of leader for a couple days and got some stage wins.
Well, I have to say that this is taking an interesting turn, this race now, because clearly Gilberto Simoni, we saw that little chat between the two Sony Deval riders, and I reckon it was Simoni telling the team he was feeling good and it's time to drive this race. He might fancy his chances today. He's a little bit of ground to make up, Simoni. He's sitting 20th overall, a minute 56 behind the lead. There are small time bonuses today at the top of the mountain, and he's just locked in the same time gap as the rider who won the stage yesterday, Rick Verbrugge, who certainly had an inspired ride. But that's a good indication now that Simoni is going to take on De Luca for the finish.
Well, you know, if he does try and take out the win this year, I think he'll be the oldest rider ever to win the Giro d'Italia, and that is really quite a tall order, because the older you get in the sport of professional cycling, what happens is you actually take away a little bit of your climbing ability. And Gilberto Simoni this year, Bob, at 34 years of age, I think is asking an awful lot of his body.
Yes, absolutely. That'll be a high order for any man, especially a man 34 years of age. Gilberto Simoni seems to still be climbing well. Got a little bit late start for his career, so it's not entirely impossible. We saw the heart rate there of Rafael Iliano just moments ago, and one of our breakaway specialists from the Giro's last couple of editions. We haven't seen him on any of these big breakaways so far, but you never know. Iliano not riding too badly, about 71% of his maximum.
2 minutes 12, a lovely little area of Italy around the mountains of Abruzzo. As Bob was saying, it's an area which is not affected by industry at all. It is just an old Roman area, and it's fabulous. And the peloton here, I think they've been disrupted a bit by that crash, because they were bringing that breakaway in very, very quickly. The closing down has closed in now, because it's still 2 minutes 12 seconds. And in fact, although we never saw the catch from the rider who broke away, Jan Kijks, he is in fact back in this leading group.
A lot of riders already losing big chunks of time in the Giro d'Italia. I was surprised yesterday, Bob, to see, for example, Bobby Julich, who has come to the race this year to help Ivan Basso, losing himself more than 21 minutes on the stage, while Jens Voigt, the man who we always know is a tough character, Voigt is high up in the overall classification. It must have been a pretty tough day yesterday for Bobby.
Very tough day yesterday. Jens Voigt in 10th place on GC, just a minute behind our leader, Sergei Gonchar. Gonchar riding very well. He's had some good success in the Giro in the past. And Bobby Julich suffering a little bit on yesterday's stage. Let's see if he can reverse that and do a good climb to the finish line today in Passo Lanciano.
Looking at the breakaway, and this rider here at the front, Christophe Edelen, the last man to catch up before it finally opened up the gap. A little bit of a problem here as well, it looks like, at the back of the race, as this is Leonardo Duque of Colombia. And I must say, he's having a great tour. We've never ever seen this boy ride until this Giro d'Italia, and he's a good sprinter. But right now, got a little bit of a problem. I think the problem was he fell off in that crash earlier ago.
A little bit of a crash. You can see there he's trying to get himself sorted out, but he must have gone down the way he was looking at his elbow there. This is because I think of the fact there's a little bit of rain starting to come into the air and going around one or two of these corners. These roads in this part of Italy, if you get just a slight dampness on them, are almost like an ice rink.
Just looking at the shape of him there, he must be a pretty cool climber, I would think, as well. He's certainly showing us, though, he's a good sprinter, not too far off the pace when it comes down to run to the finish. Well, Leonardo Duque is going to have to get back into the field. The two boys in green there were the last two riders to join the leaders, and they were the Crédit Agricole, Edelen and Benoit Bolde, and they still have a chance of at least being the first to the foot of the finishing climb. We'll take a break. Welcome back to day stage 8 of the Giro d'Italia. Now, while some of the top Americans are taking part here on the race today in the Tour of Italy, other Americans are elsewhere. So let's have a look where they are now in our Subway American update, and we'll start with Bob on Bobby Julich.
Bobby Julich have a good season so far. He's racing in the Giro. in defense of Ivan Basso's chances. He's currently sitting 112th position, but he's here to work for Basso. Doing a good ride in the Giro so far. Dave Zabriskie getting ready for the Tour, out training by himself, so he doesn't have any races for a little while. And Floyd Landis, of course, has been on fire this year, winning 3 big stage races. His next is the Dauphiné Libre on June 4th.
Tommy Danielson's had an unbelievably quiet start to the Giro d'Italia, but he's already in 7th place in the overall classification. Hincapie, I believe, is back in Europe preparing for the Dauphiné Libre, which is June 4th to 11th. And of course, Levi Leipheimer will be starting tomorrow in the Volta a Catalunya in Spain, and that's all part of his pre-Tour de France preparation.
And what about Chris Horner? Well, he had that wonderful stage win in the Tour of Romandy, and now he's looking forward to his second Tour de France. Let's not forget he finished 33rd at the first attempt a year ago. And Freddy Rodriguez, he gets back into action tomorrow when he starts the Tour of Catalunya, and that runs through to the 21st of May. That's where they all are, and we wish them luck. Right, well, that was our Subway American update. Looking down through the little bit of rain that's beginning to fall here now, it's still the same 2 teams who feel they have the winner today on the Giro d'Italia stage number 8 as they pass under the 25 kilometres to go banner at the moment. And there's been another crash as we cut back, and there's a Crédit Agricole rider there. Now, I don't think this is in the breakaway. This is back in the peloton.
Well, this is all about the fact there's just a slight dampness coming down onto the road here. The fact is, this is just at the back of the group. You can see all of these riders very much taken out by the fact that we've got a slight surface dampness. Bob, it's getting risky, and it's also an indication that everybody is starting to be a bit on the rivet.
In this part of Italy, when it rains, if there hasn't rained for a long time, the roads are unbelievably slick. And I think the riders are sensing that and going down in droves so far today. Very, very slippery roads, and heads up to all the riders out there today. In Italy, on this part of the country, it rains so rarely that when it does rain and it comes down initially, it is very slick. After a few minutes of rain, it sort of washes away all of the diesel fuel that's been spilt on the pavement. And look at the gaps there. So that crash must have been right in the front of the peloton, towards the front end. And all of these riders now trying to close that gap and catch back on. This is one of the Lampre riders that are trying to come back into the field. Unbelievably slick roads today.
Paolo Fornaciari, a big man who used to be a big lead-out man for Mario Cipollini in the old days, he went down fairly hard, but we're now back with the leading group of riders, still 14 strong, and they must now be ticking away and waiting for the start of the climb. The climb will come at just 12.5 kilometres to go. These guys are all working very well. They're probably, Phil, starting to believe with the weather conditions that they might just survive, but the big guns are certainly going to fire because they have to see if there's any weakness in the men who think about winning the Giro d'Italia this year.
Well, they've got one ambition today, and that's to get to the top of the mountain ahead of the rest. And if all these crashes keep occurring, they might have an outside chance of doing it today. That was Andre Maielletta of Gerolsteiner in the breakaway, and Gerolsteiner are heading into a great period for the team. They rode well in their own race in Germany recently, and now they're riding well here in the Giro d'Italia. There's the crowd down there, all parked up. Life with the breakaway. 25 kilometres to go now for the main field, and there's the gap. 1 minute and 55, just over 15 miles to race. Of course, 7.5 of them are in fact up the climb itself. So the riders know this, and they've never really allowed this breakaway out of their clutches today, but they have been disrupted in the chase back by all of these crashes back in the main field. And if this rain continues to just put a skim across on the road surface, then I think we're liable to see riders falling. Here's poor old Paolo Fornaciari. You can see the blood on his elbow there. Took a nasty little bang, and he's going to have to go up the mountain now, looking like he needs a bit of first aid, and he may not get back to that breakaway. So as he tries to get back into the field tried to catch the break. That's where we're going. See you in a moment. Welcome back to stage 8 of the Giro d'Italia. Wiping his brow here is a man in the breakaway for Lampre, the only Lampre man, in fact. Back in the main field now, it's Cortinovis. And Marzio Brusegin is the Lampre rider in the breakaway. 3 minutes and 46 seconds was his gap at the start of the day. He's not going to be the new race leader at the finish now, though. Cortinovis also up there in this front breakaway. He rides for Milram. And Benoit Poilvet, one of the last men to reach the breakaway, and it might have been a long chase all day for nothing, but we don't know that yet.
Just looking at the organisation on the front end of the main field, in fact, so you can see that it's still an awful lot of work being done by just two teams. It's Sonia Duval in the yellow jerseys there of Gilberto Simoni, and of course the lime green jerseys of Liquigas. One man who had a very hard time yesterday was a man who finished third overall last year, Rujano. He was sick on yesterday's stage. In fact, he stopped at the side of the road on a couple of occasions, but still managed to finish on 35th place on the stage, just over a minute in arrears. But with that kind of sickness, it's very difficult to bounce back, and the pressure, I think, maybe fell on his shoulders this season.
Well, he also fell in that big pile-up we saw, and so it's not a good weekend for Rujano. But at least his team persuaded him to ride in the race. That was their first big objective. He didn't seem to want to come out of his hometown to come even into Europe, because at the end of this race he will transfer to Quick Step. So it seems to be not a good period in the career of Jose Rujano. But time will tell. Driving the race at the moment is the man from Euskaltel Euskadi, Iker Flores. There's the full list of names in the breakaway for you. You have to read pretty fast when you're watching Italian television pictures, because they don't leave it up there too long.
No, they don't, but I think the important thing to note is the names of riders like Brusegin, who's one of those guys who's been around for an awful long time and always threatened to come up with a big win. This afternoon he might be hoping to try and get himself the stage victory, but when you look at the main field in a big long line like that,
it's organised now.
The hammer is down. They really are trying to pull this all back together. Although it's a big breakaway of 14 riders, I think the main field have pretty much got it under control here.
Just the two teams though, Bob, and they believe they've got their men to win the day.
So far, it's not been a lot of work having to be done by the T-Mobile squad with the race leader. Currently, that is Gonchar, yes, absolutely, but it's kind of nice for the T-Mobile riders. They haven't had to do any work yet because of how competitive the Italians are at the Giro d'Italia. Simoni's team, Sonia Duval, up at the front, along with De Luca's team, Liquigas. They are making the big tempo and closing down the gap to the breakaway here. Cortinovis, Poivle, and all the rest, 14 men in the break. Serge Baguet having a very good season this year after a couple of hard years on the Davide Manlotto squad. He's come over to Quick Step and having a good year. Nicky Sorensen, he's a CSC rider in the breakaway.
Serge Baguet, actually quite an interesting story, because he's a rider who retired from the sport and got bored with his retirement. He actually was a roof tiler, and he decided he'd have a go to come back to the sport, and ended up with a success in the stage of the Tour de France. Since then, he really has had a brilliant last two seasons, I have to say. That's him in the Belgian national champions jersey there. It doesn't look to me, Phil, as if this leading group is slowing down at all, but the gap is slowly but surely starting to creep down.
Well, we just passed under 20 kilometres ago, 12 miles. Remember, the climb really starts to bite to just inside 13 kilometres from the line. Although the area here is pretty much steady uphill now as we head for the final climb of the day at the Passo Lanciano. This is the main field, and the rider sitting there on the back for Gerolsteiner, Torsten Hickman. He was involved in a little bit of a shunt earlier on. A lot of riders have fallen today, many of them we haven't seen, but they've gone down because of the slick road. But it looks to me as though as we climb, funnily enough, we're climbing away from the bad weather today. Sitting there at the back, Francisco Perez, he's in the breakaway for the Case d'Apon team. Same team, remember, of Alejandro Valverde, who had that wonderful purple period in the Classics, and now getting ready for his shot at the Tour de France this summer.
Well, there's almost a visible difference in the speed there between the main field and that leading group of riders. Once they hit the climb, it really does kick up, because only after 1.5 kilometres the race hits the steepest part of that climb, and that's at 13%. After that, it becomes a fairly steady climb all the way up towards the summit. But I do feel today that Gilberto Simoni will hit these riders as soon as we get to the first part of the climb, because he needs the steepness to open up his gaps.
So the Sonia Duval boys feel that Gilberto Simoni will win the stage to get today. The gap at 20 kilometres from the finish, still 1 minute and 25 seconds. Welcome back to stage 8 of the Giro d'Italia. The leaders are about 18 kilometres now from the finish. The last climb isn't too far ahead, Bob.
The last climb is going to start for the breakaway in just a few kilometers' time. And for the main field, they'll be right behind them, just over a minute behind. But gap's starting to open up already now. very, very tough tempo set by the Saunier Duval squad of Gilberto Simoni.
A lot of guys are now starting to go off the back. They really are suffering with the tempo that has been put on the front of this race by those two teams. There's certainly going to be a big showdown. That young rider at the back there, by the way, number 21 in the light blue jersey, is Jean-René Bernardot's son. He's the director sportif of Bouygues Telecom, a wearer of the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, and of course a winner once of a stage over the Stelvio in the Giro d'Italia when he was working for Bernard Hinault. He was involved in a crash earlier in the day.
There's a proud man, Jean-René, as well, seeing his son riding today, albeit a little bit close to the tail of the peloton there, as he's about to get his first taste of a high mountain in this year's Giro d'Italia. We're back with the leaders here. There's 14 of them still all together at the front. I'm sorry we keep on dropping out the pictures occasionally. Of course, they are live pictures, and the weather conditions not that great at the moment up in the mountains there. We'll get them back as fast as we can. But that breakaway, when it went under the 20 kilometres to go banner, had 1 minute and 25 seconds. Serge Baguet just off the front now, as he's replacing the breakaway here by the Case d'Apern rider, is still full of fight here. I think it won't be such an easy catch as you might think.
Now, it's going to be a difficult chase up this mountain, but because of the fact the overall classification can change again, I do think we will see these riders slowly but surely get pulled in, maybe with 4 or 5 kilometres to go to the summit of the climb. Sergei Honchar is leading this race, but only by 6 seconds from Paolo Salvadelli and 11 seconds to Ivan Basso. And of course, there are time bonuses out on the course, and we haven't yet gone through the point of the 110 years of the Gazzetta dello Sport, where there's 6, 4 and 2 second time bonuses available, and of course 20, 12 and 8 seconds available on the finish line.
And that happens in the town of Manapello at 154 kilometres covered. Well, as the riders here try to sort out just how are they going to bridge the gap to the leaders, let us not forget either the quest for the cup continues on OLN. Be there for all the epic action at the NHL Conference semi-finals. Live tonight, it's the Devils versus Hurricanes. That's Game 5 at 7, and followed by Game 5 of the Oilers versus Sharks at 10. OLN is Hockey Central.
Nice little move. This was to be expected from one of the riders from Euskaltel. Iker Flores is a man who over the years has promised to be a brilliant climber, and now he's found himself on home terrain. He's only 109th in the overall classification, and this is a nice move for him, and this will be a difficult move to respond to, especially when we get to the steeper part of the climb.
Well, an anticipated move, I think, this Bob. Euskaltel Euskadi haven't had a great year yet. I was surprised that this man has never really matured into the great bike rider we expected. He's 32 now, and he's won the Tour de l'Avenir way back in the year 2000, and his best finish in the Vuelta a España was in 2003, when he finished 18th. Today, though, he's going to try and win a stage of the Giro d'Italia. Welcome back. We're on the road to the first big mountaintop finish today in the Giro d'Italia, but as we make our way there, one of the men who's very highly placed on the overall classification is the Italian on Team Discovery, Paolo Salvadelli. He is the defending champion. He's won this race twice before, and now here's Bob Roll to tell us a little bit more about it.
For Paolo Salvadelli, 2005 was a renaissance. Now in his 10th year as a pro, Salvadelli is a major force on Team Discovery Channel. The Italian is an all-around rider, time trialing with the best of them and possessing climbing skills most cyclists crave. But his biggest attribute is his ability to descend. The 33-year-old has calmly been able to make up major time on the downhill portions and thus been nicknamed Il Falco. After finishing second overall in the '99 Giro, Salvadelli conquered the race in 2002, which raised his stock as a cyclist. He signed on with one of the top teams, T-Mobile, for the 2003 season, but injuries and illness marred his career for 2 years, and he was almost forgotten. For 2005, the tough veteran was heavily coveted by team director Johan Bruneel and signed on with Team Discovery as a valuable asset. After breaking his collarbone at training camp last season, Salvadelli recovered in time to ride the Giro d'Italia, but started as an outside contender. That quickly changed when he came fourth in the prologue and third in the time trial. Once the mountains hit, he used his head as much as his legs and ended up taking the pink jersey as overall race leader when the race finished in Milan. Then in July, he suited up for the Tour de France to fulfill his support role to Lance Armstrong. On stage 17, he used masterful tactics and took his first Tour de France stage win in dramatic fashion. This season, Paolo's goal will be to defend his Giro title. But with Lance Armstrong now retired, when the Tour de France rolls around, Savidelli will start the race as a domestique, but should not be counted out as someone who could fill the role of team leader should that need emerge.
Well, thanks, Bob. I remember the comment made by Chris Horner recently when he got on the wheel, Paul, of Paolo Savidelli. Then he found just how fast this man does descend.
He goes downhill pretty fast, but I think he's completely improved since joining Discovery Channel, because not only has he always had that ability to go downhill fast, but I think his time trialling is going to be his strongest point this year in the Giro d'Italia.
Here we are now into the town of Montepello, and this is where the 1:10 sprint is, and it looks as though Baguet, who's just reached Iker Flores, has now decided to go for the points, a little bit of money and a couple of seconds time bonus. Not going to make a big difference for Serge, but the money will go down well, Bob.
Yes, absolutely. A nice little preem for the Quick-Step squad. Serge Baguet riding very strongly, looked at Iker Flores, got on his wheel and went right straight past him. So good climbing. Perhaps he's going for this preem, maybe he's going for the stage win, but the gap is down under a minute now, just at 47 seconds. So I think that the climbers and the GC men are hot on the heels of the breakaway right now.
Once they come out of this town, an easy set of points there for Serge Baguet, a little bit of money in the back pocket, a 6-second time bonus, which is not that important for him in the overall classification, but almost immediately they leave the town, Phil, the climb starts, and after 1.5 kilometres of the climb, it's really going to get painful.
Yes, that is the signal, I think, now. Everybody knows that sprint band. Look, they're under there now with the main chase, so it's coming down so fast. The 1:10 sprint, by the way, remembers the 110 years of being for the sponsoring newspaper Gazzetta dello Sporto this time around. And Gilberto Simone's boys have done a good job here because they're just starting to pick off the leaders in that breakaway. There coming in is Christophe Edelane on the left of our picture as they wipe him out. So, Paul, this is now for Gilberto Simone today.
And they've already pulled all the service cars out of the gap, so that's an indication we've come inside the 1 minute margin. And our counter there on the right-hand side indicating to us that it's actually just 52 seconds. The team of Gilberto Simone there in the yellow jerseys of Saunier Duval are doing a brilliant job bringing it all back together just in time for Gilberto Simone to attack. And the point of the climb for him, Bob, has to be 1.5 Ks because he loves the steepness of these climbs.
A very good climber, one of the best in the business. Gilberto Simone has been so successful in the Giro, winning 2 editions previously and hoping to add a third at 34 years of age. Simone has his men on the front. Saunier Duval didn't do a great team time trial. He finds himself a couple of minutes behind on GC, so he needs every stretch of uphill road to start to claw back some of that time to Basso, Savidelli, and of course our leader, Sergei Gonchar.
Well, this is the current leader in the King of the Mountains, Staf Schierlinks from Belgium. Good to see a Belgian boy putting on a leader's jersey. They had a good day yesterday because Schierlinks also on Cofidis. Cofidis won the stage with Verbrugge. But I think today, if it depends how the cookie crumbles towards the summit, but I think he'll lose his lead today. There's the result of that sprint. It wasn't really a sprint. Baguet held on for first, but in fact, Grisha Neerman managed to pass Flores and take second place.
Well, that King of the Mountains classification could change. There are 15 points for the first man to the top of the climb today, with it being a King of the Mountain top finish. And it could well be that the winner of the stage becomes the new overall leader of that competition. Baguet has decided to keep on with the aggression here. He's decided to keep going forward. He's got himself a slight advantage still over that group. And I think this is rather a brave move by him because he must realise right now that the main field is closing down very rapidly.
So, as the leaders are heading towards the climb and the front group isn't far away, we are at 15 kilometres to go for Serge Baguet, the lone man in the lead. That means he's 3 kilometres from the start of the big climb. We'll take a break. Welcome back. Well, just joining the group again, Baguet has been caught and it's been a counter-attack here which has come from Matteo Brussegin of the Lamprey squad, and he was the best place rider in this front group. He isn't, well, he's still the best place rider, but he's nowhere in the lead anymore because the main field is now within a minute on the chase back.
Well, Brussegin has been a man who's been very close to victory on a number of occasions, but look, there is the main field coming through that point, almost a few metres behind that leading group of riders. I would say, Bob, the gap now is down to around about 30 seconds. In a couple of kilometres' time, we'll get to the very steep part of this climb. But there's no more flat left on today's stage.
No, absolutely not. Little descent here out of the village where the Gazzetta 110 banner was. Whoa, right off the road for Bruce Seguin. Got right back on, though. Didn't even have a giddy up in his stride there. So good riding by Bruce Seguin. I don't think it's going to be enough, however. A little replay there. Don't try this at home when you're going about 60 kilometers an hour to go off the road and come back on. Usually that spells disaster. The roads have dried up a little bit, so Bruce Seguin, a little bit of a lead from the riders in the breakaway. Very strong rider from the Italian Lamprey squad of Damiano Cunego, and now the climb has started.
Well, you know, Bobby's such a strong rider. He's had second and third places on stages of the Giro d'Italia in the past, but I don't think he's ever won a bike race since he turned professional.
No, he's an amazing guy, and he's such a good rider as well. He never has a problem getting a contract because they know his strength. And here he is again, riding another excellent Giro d'Italia. The other man who's very similar to him is Andre Noé, who also has virtually anonymous all year round till he gets into the Giro d'Italia. He's still riding pretty high in the overall. We wouldn't be surprised if we see him in the action again today. This is the scrabble at the back now. The boys who've no intention of winning but don't want to lose too much time as they try to hang on. Still a big peloton, despite all the disruptions by the falls today. And now really, although the climb is yet to start, it is on the way up. There's the team buses, and that always is an indicator we're not far from the finishing line now.
Well, there's only 39 seconds between the leading group and the main field. It really is all starting to come back. This man here really, but despite the fact that we've talked about him a lot throughout the history of the Giro d'Italia, has been a professional since 1997. This is his 10th year as a pro, and he's never managed to cross the line in first place, and he's now just seen that Calzati, the Frenchman from AG2R, is coming across the gap to join up with him. But I still think they're just delaying what is the inevitable, and the inevitable to me, Bob, is the big names are going to fight out this stage.
We see Simone's men on the front, the whole team doing a great job pulling back the advantage of the breakaway, and now Gonchar's team of T-Mobile will come to the front, and I don't think that the Discovery team will be too far away, trying to do the big lead out before the climb for their man Paolo Savidelli. And Tom Danielson, let's not forget, is riding quite well also in 7th place on GC. And let's say hi to all the moms out there on Mother's Day.
Well, Tommy D up there just inside a minute, but obviously it's his teammate Paolo Savidelli who's got the biggest chance of getting the overall lead here this afternoon, because there's a 20-second time bonus for the first rider to cross the line, and Savidelli rode superbly yesterday. He was second on the stage behind Rick Verbrugge, but best of all the rest.
Well, there's the field now, gathering the breakaways as fast as they can. These are the two leaders now, and they're just about on the slopes of the climb. This is Sylvain Calzati, once won the Tour de l'Avenir on 0 time game, by the way, when he won that title, but he hasn't won much more since. And with him is Bruce Seguin of the AG2R, an Italian, two Italian. Welcome back to the Giro d'Italia. We are now on the beginning slopes of the climb up to the finish. Some 13 kilometres to go for the peloton. Here they are. The Maglia Rosa is down there. We haven't seen much of him today, Paul, but he's in there.
He's absolutely in there, not a problem at all for him, but I did notice just as we went up to the finishing line photo here that in fact Team CSC had started to take the reins of the front end of the main field, so maybe Bob is going to get his wish and it's going to be a win for Ivan Basso. Basso starting the day in 3rd place in the overall classification, just 11 seconds down. Bob, this is the kind of move for Basso. It's the kind of climb that suits him down towards the end as well, because it's a power climb.
It is a very powerful rider that's going to get to the top of this mountain with some good climbing skills. It's not a purely mountainous stage, it's just a long, hard climb to the finish, so maybe the pure climbers will have to wait a few days before we get into the Dolomites and the Alps further on in the Giro d'Italia. Looking up to Bruce Seguin and Calzati, still a little bit of an advantage, but one feels that the inevitable is about to happen to them. They'll be caught also by the chasing field.
Well, we're looking at the two leaders here now, the remnants of what has been for most of the day an 11-man breakaway. If you're just joining us now, the peloton is snapping at the heels of these two leaders here, Bruce Seguin and Calzati. The gap is 40 seconds. A quick update, as it was this morning at the start in the overall classification. Sergei Gonchar is in pink, just 6 seconds ahead of Paolo Savidelli, and Ivan Basso there looking for 11 seconds. Other big names, Tommy Danielson of Discovery Channel sits in 7th, and Danilo De Luca, he's heavily tipped to win today. He is in 9th at 1 minute and 7 seconds. That's how they face now, Paul, the last climb of the day.
Well, they're pulling all of these riders back in. You can see riders slipping backwards. Those were riders who were in that leading group of 14, but the big men now are starting to group up towards the front. That's Danilo De Luca moving forward there in the lime green jersey. A little bit further up the road, not much more than 30 seconds now we've got these riders, and this is Brusegin really putting the hammer down. He's got good legs here this afternoon with Sylvain Canzati in second place, but you know what? The big guns really want to have their name.
Well, one would love to see Matteo Brusegin get the stage victory, but it's not going to happen because now we're starting to see the zigzags here as we climb up towards the finish, out of the town of Maielletta, heading now onto the Passo Lanciano, and the peloton already riders at the back finding this rapid pace, Bob, as they hit these mountains. You know all about the speed Italians climb mountains like this.
Oh, absolutely. The attacks are going to start to come as the team workers peel off the front after doing their work, and it's been the Saunier Duval squad doing a lot. Great to see Aaron Olsen, the American on the team of Gilberto Simoni, twice winner of the Giro d'Italia. Aaron Olsen having a great Giro so far, leading out Simoni. Let's see what Simoni can do. He's a big question mark for this year's Giro. He's talked a lot about being one of the favorites, but no one else includes him. And Brusegin now trying to leave Calzati behind.
Going again, big power turn here for Brusegin. He knows now he wants to win this stage if he can. He's opened up the gap. He has to go alone. He's a very good individual time trialist, moving across to Team Lampre after the Fassa Bortolo breakup at the end of last season, but he really is holding on because the main field is starting to be ripped to pieces at the front end, with riders like Danilo De Luca moving forward, riders like Gilberto Simoni. Simoni has to do something on every mountaintop finish if he wants to win the Giro d'Italia this year, because he's already almost 2 minutes in arrears in the overall standings.
Brusegin here was the highest placed rider in the original breakaway. He sat in 42nd position this morning, 3:46 behind, and now he's trying to get a little bit at least to salvage something from the day and win the stage. Cycling on the Giro d'Italia continues here on Cyclism Sundays. Don't forget, you can watch live web streaming every day. All you've got to do is sign up today at olmtv.com for exclusive live streaming video of the Giro, and catch the Giro d'Italia with us, of course, every Cyclism Sunday this month.
Just looking down, you can see the acceleration starting to come. It's just 30 seconds the front end of the main field behind this man, Brusegin. He looks good. He's turning the pedals nice and fluidly, gets out of the saddle every time the climb gets a little bit steeper. Started the day in 42nd place in the overall classification, but almost 4 minutes down in the overall standings. But Bob, there's a lot of riders moving to the front. We just saw a rider from Team Phonak coming out of the front end of the peloton. That may well have been Steve Zampieri.
Phonak on the front with one of the Illes Baleares riders covering that acceleration. The big guns not firing just yet, but I'm sure that's not far behind. Here is the heart rate of Julio Perez, getting up to 82% of his maximum, and he has a maximum of 205 beats per minute according to that graphic. That's quite amazing. Here's the finish line at the top of the climb, the Passo Lanciano.
And while we've temporarily lost pictures, it's a good cue for us to take a break. Rejoin us for all of the action as we head up towards the finish. Well, welcome back. A chance then to look briefly at the finishing line here and to the graphics of where the riders are. The blue jersey is the breakaway of Brusegin, and the pink is the main peloton at the moment. Those that's left at the sharp end of the big bunch as they race up now the Passo Lanciano. And for the moment at least, our helicopter pictures have stopped coming in from Italy. And there's support of certainly Pantani in his memory. These are the greats, Bartoli, of course, and Danilo De Luca, because he's the local man. He knows these roads, I think, Bob, better than anybody in the peloton today.
This is his region. This is where De Luca is from. And all of these people have come out to see him. I think most of the banners have been dedicated to best wishes for Danilo De Luca for the climb. And he's not riding the Giro so well. He hasn't had a great season like he had last year at the start of the year when he won Flèche Wallonne as well as the Amstel Gold Race early in the season, and then had a great Giro d'Italia. A lot of the press in the offseason said he's coming here to win, but so far he hasn't shown the legs, and he's lost a little bit of time on GC. Unless
we forget the winner of that non-competition called the Pro Tour last year, because we never know who's leading that, and certainly never takes part in the races. We're looking now at the leader on the road here, Matteo Brusegin. He's made his move. We've a lot of admiration for this guy. He's one of the men that don't seem to win races, yet he's always in the thick of the action, and he's still hanging on.
Well, one man hanging on in between there at the moment is Perez, who's just around about 15 seconds behind the leader, Bruce. But it's Team CSC taking over control of the reins at the front end of the main field, and it could well be that Ivan Basso has decided he wants to lay down the law here this afternoon. He has said that he wants to win the Giro d'Italia. I think he's moving away from the fact that he does want to try and do the double. He's saying, I'd just be happy to win the Giro d'Italia if I could this season. Then he'll get his head round trying to win the Tour de France as well. There's Paolo Salvadelli moving up there. He actually looks pretty good.
Well, a lot of people are saying that Paolo Salvadelli is the one rider who's cruising around in the peloton here. Well, we've seen him in action from day one, of course. He won the time trial on stage 1. And that's not a bad start for defending champion. And now he's just waiting for the moment. He could be in the frame today.
Well, second position there is Ivan Basso. Right on his wheel is Danilo De Luca. Not very far behind him was Julio Perez, the Mexican rider who we've seen take victories in races like the Giro d'Italia before. This was the leading group of riders a little bit earlier. Now they're off the back of the race. Bruce is about to get caught there. He's got around about 10 metres advantage over the front end of the main field. I think we just caught a quick glimpse of a man by the name of Jan Ullrich going backwards there as well.
He was there.
Still a little bit overweight.
He was in that group of riders slipping off the back. He's a top 25 rider this morning at the start of the day. Now it looks as though the pressure has suddenly gone on here by the big boys. And this is the time now to wipe out the man from Lamprey. And then we're going to have a head-to-head, I think, well, the way they think, between Gilberto Simoni. There's the catch on the left-hand side of the picture. Bruchigin is going back. And the riders at the head of the race for the first time for a long time today are all together. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with the action. Looking now at the leading peloton, there's no breakaway anymore now, just a front split of the big field on the climb to the finishing line today, stage 8 of the Giro d'Italia, heading up the Passo Lanciano. And Bob, it looks as though Basso has now decided to drive the train. The pink jersey of Gonchar is a little bit in trouble.
Gonchar seems to be in a little bit of trouble. Carlos Sastre, the teammate of Basso on the front of the peloton. Gonchar is not an explosive climber, but he does have a tremendous amount of power. He needs to collect himself and go at his own tempo. I think that he can close the gap a little bit, but our leaders are going very fast. Leonardo Piepoli, that's the teammate of Simoni on the front now, driving the peloton, trying to drop Gonchar, putting him in serious trouble right now.
Well, I'm surprised to see Gonchar using such a small gear, because normally he's a big gear climber, a man who climbs on sheer and absolute power. That's an indication there that he's not really in good shape here this afternoon, but Piepoli is at the front definitely of this group. He's trying to set something up for his team leader Gilberto Simoni, but Ivan Basso is lying in about second or third place. He looks very cool.
He looks very, very cool right now, and that's a good sign. Leonardo Piepoli at the front now setting the pace. He didn't ride this race last year. There he is. He chose instead to finish second in the Tour of Catalonia. That gets underway tomorrow, of course, and that's in Spain. Right now, his thoughts here to make a way here where possibly Simoni can take advantage. Danilo De Luca has moved right into the thick of the action now. These are going to be the strong men, but this is a very fast power climb. And it's giving us some indication, I think, though, for the first time, the riders who are thinking of victory, which is still 2 weeks away.
It's a long way to go to the finish in Milano. That's Carlos Sastre on the front, stamping out the pace for his man there. You can see Danilo De Luca moving up into third place. Danilo De Luca is a very explosive rider when it comes to the end of climbs like this. And of course, the man who can finish off at any summit finish is, of course, Gilberto Simoni. He's just a little bit further back in fourth place. But I suppose the big surprise to me is basically the disappearance from this group of the pink jersey and the man who led the day, Sergei Honchar, because he normally should be able to stay in a group of 10 or 15 riders.
Generally in the Giro, he has been able to do that. Here we see the front group and a lot of suffering going on. It's been really fast tempo set by the CSC team, as well as Paolo Salvadelli right there, still in the front, and Julio Perez, the Mexican, on the Panaria squad, hanging tough. We've seen him win stages in the Giro before. This is a very select group, and all of our GC contenders are there.
So 11 riders are now establishing a lead here on the Passo Lanciano. And by next Saturday, of course, there'll be a further week down the road in the Giro. And also next Saturday, it's the drive to Arena Bowl 20. That starts on OLN with the first game in Arena Football's wildcard round. The AFL on OLN, it's more fun indoors. Next Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern. There is the composition now of this very select league group as they climb the Passo Lanciano here in the Giro.
Well, there's Damiano Cunego just up there as well in the pink and blue jersey of Team Lampre, just hanging on the back there. Paolo Salvadelli, I'd have to say, Bob, in our terminology, using his experience.
Yes, absolutely. Letting the other riders make the tempo. No teammates. Tom Danielson dangling just a little bit off the back of this lead group. Tom Danielson starting the day in 7th place on GC. Now we're looking at 191 beats for that man, Julio Perez, and that's 93% of his maximum. He knows what he has to do on his day, and there he is trying to come back into the picture. He knows what he has to do on these mountain stages, and that is suffer like an animal.
Former king of the mountains of the Giro d'Italia, slightly in a spot of bother on the first big climb of the day. We'll take a quick break. Rejoin us. Welcome back. It's still the same men at the front here, and sitting there at the back, Julio Perez trying to contain them here. Very fast tempo, and Paul Sherwen's just noted that Michael Rogers is losing his high place overall.
Well, Michael Rogers started the day in 4th place in the overall classification. He doesn't appear to have made this junction, which is a very large group of riders. A little bit further back down, we can see this is Rujano, who had a very difficult day yesterday, 3rd overall last year, but in fact he seems to be bouncing back here, using absolute courage to ride himself back into this group.
Interesting, because he was down in the fall earlier, but I don't see any sign of cuts and bruises on him, but he did come out of the road on the left. Anyway, he's trying to get back on. This is Paolo Salvadelli, and he's slumped over that bike here, Bob. He looks to be in trouble.
He does look to be in a little bit of trouble, opening gaps there, desperately clinging onto the back of that front group. Damiano Cunego is in there, as well as Basso hanging tough, but Salvadelli really suffering right now. A shock to the system, this first big climb of the Giro for a number of riders, and Salvadelli, the defending champion, in big trouble right now.
First and 2nd overall are now behind the men who are causing the pain of the day. That group was 11 strong. It's now about 9 riders strong here. Simone is in there, looking very threatening indeed as our cameraman searches to find where they've all gone. Here they are. 22 seconds. They're calling it the group Maielletta now, so Gonchar has gone back into a chase group.
Well, if Salvadelli doesn't come back to this group, the highest placed man in this leading group of riders is none other than Ivan Basso, and it is a very difficult climb. Let's remind ourselves that this climb is 12.3 kilometers long, an average gradient of 8.4%, and that's where we are now, but it's a 13% gradient at a certain number of points. But Salvadelli here is really suffering. I did not expect this on this first real taste of the mountains.
Well, I think it's just because it's such a different type of climb, this, Bob, isn't it? This is a fast climb. It's not a real pure climber's climb. With
very steep grades at the beginning of the climb, a lot of riders requiring a few kilometers to get into the rhythm of it, and no such luck for those riders because De Luca here in trouble because of how steep it is at the beginning, and then it just keeps on kicking up to the finish line. Basso, of course, we've seen him ride really well on the first mountain stages in the Tour in the last couple of years, and doing the same thing here in the Giro d'Italia.
Well, I often wonder what Danilo's thinking. He knows these roads so well. He's probably trained up this mountain countless times during his career as a pro cyclist. And of course, you've got that feeling of proudness. You're not going to let somebody else show you how to ride your own climb, are you?
No, you wouldn't want to. You want to dictate. You want to be the man at the front because you know all your mates, your training partners, your friends, they're all out on the side of the road here this afternoon and they want to see you do very well. You can get a chance to see the big names who've made it into this group. Basso is there. He's the best place overall, but so too is Cunego. He's riding very sensibly just in there in 3rd or 4th position. There he is, right on the wheel of his former team leader, Gilberto Simoni. But Basso's team here is doing a great job. But for Salvadelli, if he cannot finish in the same time as Ivan Basso, he could be dropping down in the overall classification. But he rides like this in the mountains, Bob. He rides with a sense of getting into his own rhythm so he doesn't put himself into difficulty. If he loses out today, he's going to have to bounce back in the individual time trial.
Yes, absolutely. Salvadelli, a very, very good tactician. He knows exactly what he needs to do to win the big tours. He's won the Giro twice before. He's trying to find his own rhythm, not lose too much time, but not put himself into oxygen debt, in which case he'd lose a lot more time. He's going to start fighting back the last few kilometers of this race. It's more gradual at this part of the climb, so Salvadelli now has to start getting in a little bit bigger gear and try to close down the gap. Sastra leading for Basso right now, and all of our favorites in the front.
Yes, we're down to 8 green bottles on this particular wall now, as all of the rest have dropped away, and Paolo Salvadelli is holding his rhythm, and he's just hoping that he will continue to close the gap. But right now he's losing ground, and Carlos Sastra turning out to be quite a support here for Ivan Basso.
Well, he really is turning out a great support for his man, but the whole of Team CSC came to this race dedicated to making sure that their man was going to win. But there's a big gap now back to Gonchar. He's lost himself 40 seconds so far on the Gruppo at the front, and the Gruppo at the front is this one we're looking at, which contains a whole host of big names. Cunego, Basso, Simoni, all the big men in the Giro d'Italia this afternoon, opening up gaps on everybody else. Just looking back a little bit further, I would say Paolo Salvadelli is hovering at around about 10 to 15 seconds.
Looking at the face there of De Luca, he doesn't want this pace to be lifted anymore, because I think he's just about on the red zone at the moment on this climb. We're out on these rather nasty escarpments here, very exposed, and they keep rearing up round every corner. Look at the angle of the bikes now. Sastre doing the work for Passo. Luca Mazzanti is in this breakaway as well. He's already had a good second place in the Tour of Trentino this year. Simoni, to me, is going to give us one of his classic accelerations soon.
I think he will wait till we get just a little bit closer to the finish. There's also Jose Enrique Gutierrez up here for Team Phonak. Team Phonak have got themselves nice and represented. And of course, representing Liberty Seguros, Caruso is there in the dark blue jersey. But if you look at the man there who wears number 191, Ivan Basso looks absolutely superb. He looks today as if he's riding the dominant Giro d'Italia. He wants to go out of this race as a winner, but in the back of his mind, Bob, he's got to be thinking, don't forget last year. Remember what happened last year. You can lose the whole of a 3-week race in one day.
In one day, absolutely, losing 45 minutes because of a stomach virus in last year's Giro. He's promised to win the Giro eventually, and maybe this is his year. Damiano Cunego looking very sharp there as well on the wheel of Leonardo Piepoli, the teammate of Gilberto Simoni. We might see a big sprint to the finish, in which case it's essential to have a teammate with you. Simoni has one, and so does Ivan Basso and Carlos Sastre.
Just on 7 kilometres still to climb to the summit of the Passo Lanciano. That's an awful long way, Bob, when you're feeling in trouble.
Oh, absolutely. That could be forever in a bike racer's career to be losing time with 5 kilometers to go. There's Gilberto Simoni, twice winner of the Giro d'Italia, big hero of all the Italian tifosi. There's the young upstart, Damiano Cunego. They were teammates last year. Cunego's so good that he's the sole leader of Lampre. A lot of pressure for a young man, but he's handling it well so far in the Giro.
Daniel De Luca is not handling it all that well. When you keep dropping a length or so off the back of the group, that's a sign that you really are suffering the pressure which is being dictated by somebody else on a climb like this. But we can see, looking down the long gap there, it's a long way back now to Paolo Salvadelli, so he's going to drop down a few places. But Rujano is solidly making contact with this group. This is a man, Phil, who yesterday was apparently vomiting at the side of the road. He lost a minute on the stage, but his courage has pulled him back into this race.
No one has ever doubted the fantastic talent that Rujano has. He came up last year and he finished 3rd in the Giro d'Italia. He's largely the reason why Stella Italia have got a wild card into this race, but they had a job persuading him to get out here and ride this event. But now he's warming to the occasion now. Big effort required there to join the leaders, and really he's the only man that has. And this group now, containing probably the future winner of the Giro, might be a little bit premature in saying that, but when you've got Simoni, Cunego and Basso and De Luca, is now stretching the elastic to its limit. He's expecting a little bit too much of himself today.
I think he's going to hear the twang of the elastic in a minute when it splits, because he's losing 15 metres, 20 metres, 25 metres, and it's all thank you very much to Team CSC on the front, because the man doing that pacemaking is Carlos Sastre. Now we can see just a little bit further, there's Tommy Danielson up there. Now he is trying to help his team leader who is in this group. This is the second group on the road. There's a lot of riders scrambling here. Emmanuel Sella in the brown jersey there of Panaria. Tommy Danielson looking rather good there just on the far side and riding as a teammate for Paolo Salvadelli. There's Andrea Noah, 136 from Liquigas. But this is turning out, I wasn't expecting such a big sort out on this stage.
And I don't think anybody was expecting Simoni to come quite so good when he'd lost almost 2 minutes so far. But now he's on his own terrain. This is where he lives and loves. And we're looking now there at Rujano, who's gritting his teeth and shaking his head. Well, this could be another cheeky little move here.
Well, for a man who lost time yesterday, who was reportedly sick overnight, this is the bounce back. This man is unbelievable. He climbs like an angel. We saw that last year in the Giro d'Italia, where he won himself the King of the Mountains and finished in 3rd place overall. This year, almost forced to come back and participate by his team, as we get a little shot there looking at Basso on one side and Gilberto Simoni on the other. They're probably thinking, what do we do about this?
Makes you wonder which one of the managers is cheering here, the manager of Sella Italia or the manager of Quickstep, because he'll switch teams on June the 1st and he'll ride for Quickstep. But right now he's thinking of trying to take a surprise stage win. He's got a gap, but he's an awful lot of ground to make up. He's nearly 4 minutes behind at the moment. He's gaining on most, of course, but not people like the people we've seen the images of there, Ivan Basso and Gilberto Simoni. They are still waiting here, and we can't be far from seeing the 5 kilometre to go banner.
Jose Enrique Gutierrez just in there in the lime green jersey of Team Phonak. Very happy to be there, just sitting around in the top 10 watching the others do all of the pacemaking. There doesn't seem to be any panic here by the move of Jose Rullano, because he is, after all, as you said, Phil, a long way down in the overall classification. But Bob, this is not a very sensible move here, because he's not actually opening up the gap. Carlos Sastre has allowed him 15 or 20 metres advantage, and he's just pulling him back slowly. That's a good sign for a real pro.
Very courageous move, but maybe not the best tactically for Rullano, maybe sitting on a little bit and making that move towards the end of the stage when the other guns start to fire. De Luca in trouble, trying to close the gap. He's in between Savadelli's group, being led quite well now at the moment by Tom Danielson. Tommy D riding good, and they need to claw their way back up and try to get as close as possible to our big climbers, Ivan Basso, Damiano Cunego, Piepoli, as well as Simoni, of course, is right in there, Saunier Duval. Good to see 2 Saunier Duval riders in the breakaway with 2 CSC men, and Rullano, of course, just off the front.
Well, De Luca is in trouble. Rullano is just about under control. We'll take a final break and then we'll ride high with the riders all the way to the line. See you in a moment. Welcome back, and as they come now, we see an attack by Damiano Cunego here. They just that second picked up the leader, and the minute he was caught, Cunego attacked.
Well, he's attacked, and there's going to have to be a response here from Ivan Basso, and Basso is picking up the pace. Sastre just over to the right-hand side there says, thanks very much, job done. It's up to you, my team leader now. You can nail back all of the attacks. Basso rides across the gap. This is how it happened, from the back. Beautiful move by Damiano Cunego, winner of the Giro d'Italia 2 years ago. But how smooth has Ivan Basso come back? Smoothly cruised across the gap, onto the wheel there, but it's put Gilberto Simoni into difficulty.
Well, that was a tremendous move, but was Basso paying attention or what, Bob?
Absolutely, and now Basso goes by Cunego to take up the pacemaking. Cunego riding really well. Piepoli and Simoni struggling a little bit to close the gap. Ivan Basso just coolly ticking over the gear there, no trouble at all, and putting Cunego into a little bit of trouble.
This is Gutierrez, Jose Ivan Gutierrez of Team Phonak. He's struggling a little bit further down the road, but he's trying to make the gap. And Bob's pick of the day, Ivan Basso, has opened up the gap over Cunego here. This man is certainly going to ride into the lead in the Giro d'Italia here this afternoon, and he's putting time between himself and everybody else in the race.
Unbelievable riding there by Basso, just coolly pulling away. You can see he's barely changed his expression. Some fog coming down on the finish line. Some of the clouds from the coast that brought the rain are now shrouding the finish line, but Basso knows exactly what he needs to do, looking very cool, collected, and putting pain into the other riders' legs right now.
And Basso there has dropped the man who was world ranked #1 back in 2004 when he had his heyday, won the Giro d'Italia, of course, on 4 stages then. Wore the pink jersey for 10 days, and Basso says, doesn't mean a thing to me. I'm going to find out just how good you really are now, as he's pedalling towards the fog, mist and rain at the top of the mountain. Officially, it's 1:15 back to Savadelli already.
That is a huge gap to Savadelli. Savadelli really struggling, but Basso is absolutely climbing to perfection now. He can sense the finish line, and I think he has a good idea that he will be in the pink jersey if all stays the same as we get to the finish line. And Basso riding great at the moment.
Well, he's actually trying to fulfill a wish here at the Giro d'Italia, a wish and a promise that he made to his mother before she passed away. His mother passed away just a couple of years ago from cancer. He said, Mum, I will win the Giro d'Italia. Today, he's trying to lay down the foundations for that victory, and this is the best way to do it. On the first real mountaintop finish of the Giro, putting time between himself and every other climber in the race.
Well, Ivan Basso trying to hammer a nail in the coffin here. Remember, he says he just wants to ride well. He's not predicting he'll win everything, but right now, if he continues on form like this, he's going to do pretty well. We're on 3 kilometres to the line now. This is Danilo De Luca, and life is not so rosy as it was about 7 kilometres ago for him.
Well, he was thinking a few moments ago that he was going to win on his favourite finishing climb. This is part of his training route, a climb that he knows to absolute perfection. But unfortunately, one or two other riders know how to go up a lot quicker than he does. And the man who's going up at the quickest at the moment is Ivan Basso. This is a picture of concentration. You look at his face here, all he's thinking about is ticking those pedals over. Cunego, different style, explosive style, battling, and he's just looking up the road every now and again, lifts his head to see if he has still got Ivan Basso in sight, because if he can make the junction, he can still win the stage, because he's the man with the explosive finish. But Ivan Basso, Bob, is on fire.
Every time he gets out of the saddle, he puts a few seconds into Damiano Cunego. And of course, he's taken big chunks of time of our other pre-race favorites, especially Paolo Savidelli, who won the prologue, who won last year's Giro, and is now over a minute behind this man right here, climbing on fire now, getting to the finish line. He's just over 2 kilometers away, and the pink jersey awaits if everything stays the same. Simone in a little bit of trouble. Now Simone's making his move, trying to close the gap to Cunego and Basso.
It's perhaps not the time to remind him, though, that he did this last year, got the pink jersey, and that's what he's destined to do just at this moment. And then came the big crash. He lost 45 minutes before returning for a couple of stage wins. It could happen again, because the last week of this year's Giro is the hardest for years.
Gilberto Simoni, Bob, was not looking very cool there at all.
No, absolutely struggling a little bit now with the tempo being set by Ivan Basso, one of the best stage racers in the world, second in last year's Tour, the only man who could rival Lance Armstrong on the early stages in those mountains, especially to La Mongie 2 years ago when Basso won the first big mountain stage of the Tour in 2004, and now he is streaking to the finish line here at the Giro. That was just a quick glimpse of Tom Danielson. He's leading Savidelli, doing a great job trying to limit the damage being done by this man right here from Team CSC, the Italian, Ivan Basso. Now, he most certainly must be close to the pink jersey that he had last year for just a couple of days. I'm sure he'll spend a lot more time in it this year.
Well, sorry about the breakup, everyone, but this is a difficult climb to keep the cameras focused. Lots of trees, the weather's closing in, and let's hope the helicopter can stay up to keep these pictures coming at us. As bad as they are, we are seeing here the first big attack of this year's Giro d'Italia by the men who want to win. And most of them, I think, have given it their best shot, and it's Ivan Basso, the arch-rival of Lance Armstrong in the last 2 Tours de France, who is setting the pace.
Well, what amazes me is he's actually using a Lance Armstrong type tactic here. The first mountaintop finish, the first big day when the riders come out to test themselves. You can see the trees there getting blown around by this weather change which is coming in. But Basso has gone out day one on the mountains. He wants to set the standard. He wants to show everybody, I'm the man this year. That face of concentration now is changing to one of pain. The team car right behind him there with Bjarne Riis and Scotty Sunderland in it is looking to see how much damage their man is doing. There's 23 seconds back to Damiano Cunego. This man today, look at the weather changing completely here. The wind is blowing in, and I think we will just see there's the Flamme Rouge, the red kite. 1,000 meters to go for this man, Ivan Basso, who at the end of the day will not only win the stage, but get on the pink jersey.
1,000 meters, Bob, and the height of this mountain is 1,300 meters above sea level. I hope that was spring blossom and not snowflakes that just went across the screen.
It almost did look like some snowflakes, but I think we won't see those until the riders get into the Dolomites in a few days' time. Ivan Basso now, Sastre leading out, a couple of attacks. Ruhano put in the first one, Cunego the second, but Basso riding very, very sensibly. He has increased his effort throughout this climb. He's producing the most watts now that he's capable of at the top of a big mountain, and that is enough for him to win the stage and get the pink jersey. Unbelievable riding by the leader of Team CSC.
I don't think there's any holding him back now, Paul. They're not going to come across the gap. And another man who's paying the price dearly too is Gilberto Simoni. He tried, but he simply didn't have the legs.
Well, he didn't have the legs. You know, he's 34 years of age, and it's very strange when you've had a very fast week of racing and we've had difficult weather conditions up in Belgium, a transfer down to Italy, then all of a sudden you've got to pedal with anger on the first big mountain test, and this is what is happening this afternoon. This man has come here to the Giro d'Italia in absolutely perfect condition. He's inside the last kilometre. He has promised to be here for the rendezvous. This is a good proof that he is.
And as he turns for home now, Ivan Basso continues the terrific season for his team CSC. They had such a great spring classics, and now he's delivering the blows. We're looking at the carnage on the climb here, the riders who have been simply blown away by the tremendous pace which was originally set by Carlos Sastre, and it was all done to bring this man home in first place. Now, he doesn't normally show form this early in the year, Basso, but this is about to be his 4th win of the year. And for the rest of them, it's going to be a matter of grit your teeth and get home and get a result. But Passo, Bob, you picked him, is now the man to beat.
I had a feeling that some of those things he said was just gamemanship, take the pressure off, deflected a little bit to these men, Cunego and Simoni, but Passo will not be stopped on today's stage.
He certainly won't be stopped on today's stage. The man who is the big loser in the mountains for the first time is the man just over on the right-hand side, slightly out of picture there, the Gilberto Simoni, two-time winner of the Giro d'Italia, not enjoying the mountains here this afternoon, which normally, Phil, are his terrain, but this man certainly is. But let's never forget, there's still 2 weeks to go to the finish of the Giro d'Italia and a lot of climbing in the last week.
That's correct, and time do change. That's Gianpaolo Caruso there, who's ridden a great race today for Liberty Seguros. Here is Danilo De Luca, going to fight all the way to the line in front of his home people. Or his local people indeed, but this is the man who's going to cap it off today and go into the pink jersey as leader by probably 30 or 40 seconds at least, and that is going to be Ivan Basso, racing to win number 4. Now last year he won a small race in France in February. His next victory was stage 17 of the Giro d'Italia. Now he wins for the 4th time this year. He's ready for both the Giro and the Tour de France.
Well, that's a big win by Basso, a nice move, perfectly set up by the team, and he really now has laid claim to the top end of the overall classification now. This is Gutierrez of Phonak trying to accelerate up to the line. Right on his wheel there is Damiano Cunego. Cunego will climb up in the overall standings here this afternoon, but I think what he was thinking more about here, Phil, was getting himself the stage victory, not fighting out for 2nd or 3rd.
Well, Cunego's going to have a go at Gutierrez, and I think he's going to take him on the line. Yes, he is. Good ride though to get up to that leading group. A shake of the head there from Damiano Cunego, and I'm just wondering what that tells us. Is he saying to himself, I did my best, but I had no answer today to Ivan Basso. This is Caruso coming up. That'll be 4th place for him, and that's a good result for Liberty.
Good ride for Liberty to have a man up in the overall classification, counting on the Italian Gianpaolo Caruso. And as we can see here now, they're slowly but surely all starting to ride into the finishing straight. A little bit further back down the line there, you can see the yellow jerseys, and those yellow jerseys are on the shoulder of Gilberto Simoni, but he's lost himself a whole lot of time this afternoon.
The thing about Simoni is, Bob, that in fact it's his teammate Piepoli who's been holding him there.
Absolutely crushing victory by Basso, 1:15:17 now to Simoni, and further down the road, Savidelli hasn't gotten to the finish line yet, and a lot of our big race favorites still struggling to the line. There's Rujano, he's coming to the line with Perez, but we haven't seen Savidelli come across the line. That's Andrea Noah, perhaps. No, that's De Luca, 1:33 behind, and Cunego over 30 seconds behind to Basso. What a ride.
Did you hear the cheer then De Luca got as he crossed the line, but 1.5 minutes. That is a huge gap. And here comes, I think that's Rujano, isn't it, crossing the line now, and with him is Julio Perez as they come in. And Savidelli isn't here, and this is going to be huge time gaps. 2 minutes has gone by already to Basso. You can't give that time away.
I didn't expect time gaps like that. There's the blue jersey right in the back there. That pale blue jersey being led by Tommy Danielson is in fact Paolo Savidelli, but he has lost himself a huge chunk of time today. I never expected to see time gaps like this on a stage like today. I thought we'd have 10 or 15 riders together. There is the pink jersey. That's Savidelli just coming in there with Tommy Danielson, but still to come in. Of course, we'd forgotten about the overnight leader, Sergei Gonchar. He's going to lose himself around about 3 minutes.
Well, this is taking on a new character tonight, the Tour of Italy, as we go into the last 2 weeks of this race. There he is, Sergei Gonchar, the Hurricane, out of that pink jersey for sure, probably for the rest of the Giro. Into it, and going to look pretty strong when we get to look at the overall situation, is Ivan Basso, and it looks to be as though his arch rival is going to be Damiano Cunego, because the rest of it are looking back tonight at some huge time gaps. Well, here he comes now. Look at the smiles on the face of Ivan Basso. A little look back here at the man as he claps and applauds the crowd. He's got a big victory today because he really has now established himself as the favourite to win this race. But let's not forget, he's been in this situation just a year ago in pink, and he didn't win then. And not surprisingly, they're very happy, and I think a little modest Ivan Basso on the podium there. And this is how it stands at the top of the mountain. Basso wins and gets a few seconds advantage, almost half a minute there over Damiano Cunego. And big time gaps these, Cunego finishing same time as Gutierrez, then came Caruso, Mazzanti, Pipoli, Gilberto Simoni in the end losing 1 minute and 15 seconds, Danilo De Luca 1.5 minutes plus, and Ruggiano, last year's King of the Mountains, he comes home ninth at 1 minute and 50 seconds. All right, well, let's go back down to the podium. Bob, your man won.
Ivan Basso doing what he promised to do early in the season when he won the Criterium International on good form, probably the most consistently strong stage racer in the world today, good at time trialing and great at climbing. And today he showed us his true form, his real colors, and got the stage win and the pink jersey.
Right, well, let's have a look how it's altered the overall classification. It really has turned it upside down after 8 days of the Giro d'Italia. Ivan Basso now a massive 1 minute and 34, Paul, ahead of Gutierrez. 1 minute 48 on two-time winner Cunego. Salvadelli at 2:35, another two-time winner. The erstwhile leader Honshaw is at 2:43. De Luca, who thought he might win today, almost 3 minutes back. Simoni, another two-time winner, looking for more than 3 minutes. And Tom Danielson survives in the top 10, albeit 3:31 down. Rubiera there completing the top 10. Have a look at the notables. Ruggiano is 20th now, but looking at more than 5.5 minutes. Ulrich slipped away, 18 minutes behind. Of the USA's top riders, Patrick McCarthy is 97th, Bobby Julich 133rd, and Jason McCartney at 47 minutes, 158. Back to the podium, it's that man again. Now he's going to have to face up to a full 2 weeks if he intends to try and defend that Maglia Rosa all the way to Milan. There are some rough roads ahead. Let's have a look where we're going next Sunday.
Well, I tell you what, it's a very difficult day next Sunday. The riders take a little incursion into Switzerland as well. They start from Aosta and go all the way to Domodossola, but they go first over the climb of the Gran San Bernardo. That is a massive climb up to almost 2,000 metres, dropping down into Switzerland for about 100 kilometres. Then they have to climb over the Passo del Sempione, or the Simplon Pass, down towards the end. 2,005 metres in altitude before a very long downhill descent into the finishing town.
Thank you, Paul. Well, don't forget, we are with you on Cyclism Sundays for the next 2 Sundays as far as the Giro d'Italia is concerned. But if you want to watch it every day, you can do so, and we'll give you all of the information on that by going to see us at olntv.com. Exclusive live streaming video of the Giro d'Italia, as well, of course, with other world-class cycling coming to you. Well, all that remains now is to say see you next Sunday. What a great day it's turned out to be for Ivan Basso, a favourite for the Tour de France, and now who's to say he's not a favourite for this year's Giro d'Italia. Up next on OLN, it's the NHL playoffs, the Devils versus Hurricanes, Game 5. But for the moment, for Paul Sherwen, Bob Roll, I'm Phil Liggett saying see you next Sunday. Goodbye.